Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Logan with West Desert Wheeler. Today I've got my custom metal tube buggy out here. This chassis is made by a company out of Utah called FAB. FAB is absolutely one of the top tier metal chassis makers for the RC world. So these things are really premium, really nice. This is a fully licensed chassis for Redden chassis, which so this is a clone of a real existing car. I actually know the owner of this exact car that this was cloned of, and I've been around it. I think I've even ridden in that car, if I'm not mistaken. But this RC has got a Vanquish transmission in it. This is their VFD transmission. It's got a Hobbywing Fusion Pro motor in it. And then it's also got a dig unit attached to the back of that transmission, so that allows me to lock the rear wheels and spin my front tires when I need to help maneuver the truck. This also has rear steer, so it's got forward and rear steer on this guy. It's got capper axles, and then I have servos that are the electronics that turn your wheels and tires. Those are from Reefs RC, and they are some of the best. They're my absolute favorites. These are the Reefs 1100 Smart Servos. This terrain out here is going to be excellent today. We should have a lot of fun. We're going to get this buggy out there, try and get it to work its way through some very technical stuff. Let's have some fun and see how she does. All right, guys, here's my controller I use with this truck. This is a FlySky GT5. So this front steering is controlled with the steering wheel. And then the rear steer is actually two knobs up here that are potentiometers. And if I twist the right one, it controls the rear steer, and I can control it independently of that. I use the hand, you can see in my shadow here, I use one hand to control my GoPro, and then I control the right knob while I control the throttle and the steering with the other hand. So that's how I make things happen out here. But apparently already getting hung up on our axle. So we're gonna test our traction today with our Proline tires. These are the Trepidor tire, and I've actually modified these myself. These are what I call cut and shuts. So I take a standard 1.9 tire, which is the size of the wheel, which is the diameter of the wheel, I should say. And then I add extra tire to it using a method of cutting the existing tire in half, taking an additional tire and cutting chunks out of it, and then gluing that to the complete tire. We're on the belly, but I feel like we might find some traction if we get scarier with it. Oh, come on. Oh dear. Oh, it's close. Come on. Yeah, you had to get closer to the cliff edge to make it work, but that was rad. So cut and shut tires, so that makes these about 5.4 inches tall, and it also changes the wheel diameter from 1.9 to a 2.2. So a bigger wheel is needed to work with these tires. And then on the inside, it's pretty cool. These, I don't use foam, which is typically what's used in RC crawler tires to support the truck. These are from a company called SL3D RC, and they are a 3D printed flexible material with a cool design so that the tire won't fold sideways from pressure, but it conforms straight into the tread from pressure. So pretty cool that we're using 3D printing in different ways like that to support the RC world now. There's quite a few companies out there that do offer that, but I like the SL3D inserts for their performance. I have them in just about every one of my RCs, and they've supported me and my cut and shut tires for a long time. So if you have a set or are interested in a set, SL3D probably has the size you're after. Most of my tires just use the crawler sized cut and shut insert. However, the Trepidors, because they are a little bit taller, have their own size, and it's typically one or the other. You're gonna get the Trepidor sized insert or the crawler sized insert. Now I'm just kind of searching around for traction here, trying to find a way to get this big car up on this ledge, because as it's trying to climb up, when those front tires hit the wall at the top, it's not letting the car stay up there. There we go. Might have found a little progress here. Now I'm trying to get that left front to climb. I pushed it off. Come on, little buddy. I had played on this before, and I've gotten one truck to kind of get up into the notch, and then we couldn't get back up in there again. So I don't know if something had shifted at some point or what. But this video, we're gonna go find some obstacles where we kind of have to earn them. Stay up there. Climb, 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 climb. Okay. All right. Now I got to see how to get this tire out of the bottom of this crack. It's going to be very difficult to get it to climb up to the right, I think. We're actually into the cage here on the windshield pillar. We could use the cage to actually support the truck and not let it slip down, but we're still going to need we're going to need more traction at that point to kind of push through that grinding. Come on. Yeah, I don't think doing that's going to be the answer. So what we're going to do is we're going to lock our car into dig, and that'll give us front wheel drive only. But as I start pushing up here, it's going to push the rear tires out. Ooh, that might just fit there. The problem is trying to get this truck to move how I want. Okay, yeah, it didn't work on that one. This truck just might be the wrong footprint for this, so we may have to move on. Of course, we got our trail buddy out here with us, Sydney. She's out here hanging out. She's actually pulling off some pretty wild lines today, rock crawling with me. All right, now I've found this line that I have been yet to be able to drive. So excited to bring this car out here that has that dig unit in it. I think it might help us out. Although this car is not particularly a vertical line killer, and this line over here gets really steep. So drag width is also going to be a big factor in our success rate here. Wow, if we can even get a tire to climb, there we go. You can see the rock lights working in here. This is from a company that's no longer offering rock lights anymore, unfortunately, so. Which they started to rip people off and charge people for lights that they weren't delivering, and it was a whole thing. Which is really unfortunate because I just like the simplicity of their product. It's just powered by a 3S battery port, which I just soldered mine direct because I run 3S in the truck. So my lights are always on in this truck. Okay, now we're gonna try and rely on that inner sidewall up here. And we're going to go back to four-wheel drive and try and get that rear tire to climb up and over. Really put some strain on the truck. Sounded like we blew a bead on there. Which I'm sure it just squeezed some air out of my tires. I do vent all of my tires on my RCs. That's a pretty common question I get. So we got to get the rear turned around, and then we're going to transfer into this crack over here. But we need to get the front to a position where I can kind of pinch the front tires in to carry the vehicle up. Okay, the rear tire fell in as well. That's all right. Now we're using the sidewalls of the rear to try and give us more traction, which is what we're going to need. I honestly wonder if a suck down winch would help us. I've got 110 millimeter shocks from D1 RC. These are sold by Crazy Clips RC. They've sent me a couple sets to play with, so thanks to Crazy Clips for that. They're made by the company D1 RC. They're a little ORI clone. They look awesome. They're a great scale looking shock, and these are definitely one of the better scale looking shocks. Okay, we're looking really good here. If we can just get that front to settle in a little bit more. Man, the track width on this is a little bit wide for what we're trying to do. So now we have to somehow get this to continue climbing up without spitting us out. And it looks like it wants to spit us out right now. We're not quite to a spot where that front end can really bite in, which is unfortunate. Yep, and we lost it all the way back down to the bottom. Yeah, this car's footprint just might not work here. So yet again, I'm gonna get denied on this one. But it gave it a real solid effort. Well, I was unable to make the climb, but if we were able to, it leaves you at this crack at the top, which is super fun and technical. I'm gonna have to get moved around so my shadow isn't in the way the whole time. So you're about 4 feet off the ground down to the bottom, just super vertical walls here, which anytime the walls are more vertical in a crack, it makes it more difficult to stay perfectly balanced and not get the car bound up, because your tires so quickly change from staying balanced to starting to drive to the bottom. This is where having rear steer trucks is just about critical. Where like a drag axle truck, a line would exist, but you're gonna have to earn it a lot more than a rear steer truck. You won't be able to just kind of cruise like this. But even in a rear steer truck, if you're not paying attention, you can screw it up. So just trying to stay balanced here, drive smart, do what you gotta do. But then the exit on this is really tricky because you have to transfer out over this crack. There's no like perfect finish to this. It's extremely technical and super fun, which is why I want to make the initial climb in to tie this all together so that the whole thing becomes one line, which is always fun. And I love finding lines like this where in theory it's possible. You just need to find the right setup to accomplish it. But this spot is a little bit further out than where I typically go crawl, so I don't end up out here nearly as often. Okay. And so what we're gonna do here is get the rear end to climb way up on the wall in the rear. And we're gonna try and float this front tire across here and balance it across. And at any moment I might have to throttle out. But how's that for a rock crawling line, guys? Okay. Trying to be able to see what's going on here. Like I say, I might have to throttle out at any second. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to throttle out to try and get the front landed on the far side. And this is all intentional. I can get this tire to float up in the air if I want it to. But at a certain point, this ledge runs out and then you have to throttle out to gap it. Right there. So then we can get the rear to touch on this far side, but again, it's another throttle out and then kind of hope it sticks. It probably won't today. So let's give ourselves the best odds. Yep, it's on that right wall, just touching it. And we're gonna hop across. Ah, it was so close. It just barely wiggled and fell down out of that. Yeah, and once she's down on the bottom, she's not coming out of there. And so you might be wondering, why not just follow the crack around? That's because it goes over here to this giant drop in and it just doesn't work out. You guys might have noticed the Utah Airgun sticker on the hood of this car. And that's because my actual buggy that I used to drive was sponsored by Utah Airguns. But Utah Airguns is a cool spot. They're based out of Utah. They sell air guns, if that's not apparent enough. But these guys have done like international competitions where people from all around the world come out, like the best shooters come out, and these things shoot so amazingly accurate. I'm into center fire stuff as well. I love the smell of gunpowder in the morning. However, these air rifles can challenge my actual center fire stuff as far as consistency and accuracy, so it's really fun to play with. But they've got competitions where they pay out, like, I want to say it's like over $25,000. It could be something even crazier than that. I know it's a lot of money for like any sport, and these guys are doing it with shooting competitions. So super cool. Utah Airguns is super badass. The owner over there is also an RC nerd, so that's how we kind of linked up, as well as my previous YouTube channel. But he's an off-road enthusiast, so super cool crossover between two of the things I really enjoy. Is firearms, and which they're not, they're air guns. So if they can ship them straight to your door with an awesome package that'll shoot tiny little groups, and it's great for pest control and all sorts of fun stuff. Really great for youth shooters as well. But if you're a seasoned guy like that loves reloading and whatnot, an air rifle is absolutely worth looking into. But yeah, just supporting the friends that support you. That's what you got to do. I'm gonna play on some ledgy stuff here. These rocks are pretty brittle. It's fun to watch these RCs chip away at these hillsides. Nothing super destructive. I mean, after the next rainstorm, you'd never know that this happened. Just a little notch climb. This is super scale to what you'd go do in a real car. And just like that, the real one would pull right up too. It's funny, they're out in this area, there's random chunks of these dark black rocks mixed in with the red sandstone rocks. Obviously some kind of volcanic activity at some point in history out here. But they're all over. And so they look super out of place, which is funny. Trying to get this front tire on top of the rock. There it is. Well, we got to get that rear. The rear missed the big rock, so I guess we'll just swing around that. Apparently I didn't swing around it. Oh, Well, that did not go to plan. There we go, self-recovery. That's why we drive buggies. So we don't have to worry about scratching the paint. You know, this one I'm really not sure of what's gonna happen, so that's why we're trying it. We should get us a good secure hook. Apparently not. I was thinking we'd get a good secure hook on that passenger front, and then the rock just broke off, so it's also a little too steep. Again, I think this car might actually benefit from a suck down winch. The rear suspension acts up a little bit odd when you reverse like that and binds, because all the overdrive, when you back up, the front end's trying to outrun the rears, and the suspension gives way because the car is under a bind. And it's the path of least resistance, is to make the car articulate versus trying to break the traction on a high traction surface. But you gotta love rear steer for how maneuverable these cars can be. Just running fun random lines out here. Exploring, trying to find the next fun obstacle. A little bit of throttle to save it. You know, it's funny, I haven't played in this area a ton, so I'm still just kind of exploring and seeing what's out here. These lines don't look very big or, you know, like super gnarly, but sometimes little areas like this can get you trapped in here and get super technical. And what do you know, we're headed the wrong direction. Well, those roof bars sure do take a beating. My car has no paint left on either side of those roof bars at the top. I've just sanded away all the paint from it. They're not dented or anything, but it is funny to see just how often I'm getting into those. It's about ready for a tear down and a repaint, just to make her look pretty again. I painted this car with Steel It because that's what I used on my real Buggy, and I had some extra Steel It laying around. I also love the way the paint sprays on that and smooths out. On the smaller scale stuff, it does get a little bit thick for the size, but whatever. I'm just gonna go out and beat it up and eventually tear it back off again. Like earlier in the video, we were scraping under the hood bar on this truck, which is kind of funny. Leaving some of my paint on the rock for that. Oh crap, I knew that rear was a little narrower, and that was kind of worst case. I thought it was going to drop one in, which if I would have driven better, we could have avoided dropping both. What's funny is it probably would only just barely fit both in there if I really nailed driving in the middle, which I did. So, I mean, technically I drove it as good as you could because I put both the tires right in the middle of that, but the car's too narrow to span that gap. The smart move would be to keep one tire high and then recover it like we just did. Oh well, first time running these lines, figuring them out. And of course, the next time I drive it, I'll probably be driving something different with a different width, and none of these rules apply, so it's always fun to go out and just figure it out. Oh wow, moved the whole rock there. Yeah, I anticipated that little rock breaking off. Don't know that we're gonna find a way up this spot. Maybe. Still gonna be very hard to get that right rear up, just because there's nowhere to really grab on the top. And that's a pretty big ledge for it to climb. Oh, nice, Trepidors. That was sweet. That was a good pull. I genuinely did not expect it to pull up that. Nice pull. This is always a fun little exercise and challenge of driving things in reverse. Sometimes on big drops, real cars will back into them. As I've mentioned before, I had done it a few times on a couple climbs, or I should say descents. And then again, the overdrive is going to make the suspension get upset, so with that rear tire being turned like that with a ton of traction on these rocks, I wouldn't have been surprised if it picked up the inside tire or anything. But this one's not too extreme. Just going to take a small forward here to square up to the landing. There we go, nice and controlled. Cool climb, cool exit. Let's go find something else. All right, I just went and scoped this spot. Looks like we've got quite a line to work our way through. I think it all looks possible. There's gonna be one canyon that gets real fun, so. This stuff, really mellow, just kind of zigzagging our way through. That front end can't escape this. There we go. Holy cow. See, little stuff like that can just make things way harder than you ever anticipated. I'm actually gonna get this crossover here. We're not going up into the corner of this pocket. There's not really anywhere to go. But there is a way to squeeze through under here, I think. which is kind of cool. Might have to use our rear steer and crab through. Ooh, our rear's barely clearing on that. And then we're gonna pivot around, and this is where it gets good. So let's get our car manipulated through here. Ooh, there's a big overhang on the right side. Trying to keep the lens out of the sun here. It's just in a hard spot. Yeah, our tire is going to be just tall enough to reach that. I'm going to use dig here. Just hoping for a little more of a pull in there. Yeah, dang. Come on. All right, well, it's not, man, yeah, this is probably never gonna work. Can't even set the car in here. Yeah, so unfortunately that pinch not working for this car. Maybe the optic, yet again, the little bit narrower track width, straight axle to get vertical, and has a real shot. All right, we've definitely got some cool lines coming up through here. Man, these Vanquish axles, as much as I love them, the Vanquish capper axle specifically is what I'm talking about. The stupid servo mount gets loose on them every time I take them out. It drives me insane. Because you got to pull the whole servo out to tighten up 2 screws that will never stay tight. And granted, like, it's definitely because I'm using strong servos. But I'm about to the point where I'm ready to have something made to fix the problem. So if anybody else out there is like really frustrated with that too, I know there's not a ton of these out there. Let me know and we'll talk about maybe making a small run of like 20 of these things to try and fix that issue. This will be a cool drop. So we're gonna see the clearance of the cage here. Probably gonna get into the door panel a bit from the direction I'm dropping, but should drop right to the bottom. Yep. Just like I said, just touch the door. That's all right. And we're gonna swing that rear up and around. It's always funny when you get into a position like that in a real car where your whole window is just a rock. It feels like you're just on the ground. Nice, that was cool. Let's climb one other one and we're gonna end up right at the end of this. All right, I have no idea if this one's possible. This is like the super gnarly way to enter this canyon, which of course sounds fun. That ain't it. And then there's a spot on the other side that definitely looks a lot more approachable than this. A little too much suspension articulation there, allowing the car to droop out when I don't want it to, unfortunately. It's give and take with setups. Ooh, maybe. At this point, it's gonna be too vertical. Come on. Yep, that one's not happening. You know, guys, and I approach a lot of these obstacles and I pretty well expect them not to do it, but I just can't help but try, because sometimes they will pull it off, and those make the coolest lines where like it's just barely possible and they're super hard, but most of the time like it's right on the edge of being possible, so you got to try stuff that kind of looks like it might not be possible. That's kind of how I find the fun, really challenging stuff. And some of my obstacles I do for a long time were impossible until I find a truck that's the right setup for it, or, you know, these things have gotten just better and better in the last couple years. So literally like technology has caught up and made things possible. Or at least availability of good parts has made my builds better. Because what's funny is like some of the most high performance cars there are like are MOAs. And one of the most competitive MOAs out there is, it's like an 8 or 10 year old car. It's been tweaked and tuned each year, but the components are like, you can't even get them anymore because they're made by companies that went out of business. But the car that continues to win world championships is old. So maybe it's not just new technology, but I love seeing all the new brands coming out, like especially like these shocks, and just moving along with to make things performance and scale is super sick. Because RC 4-wheel drive is great if you like cool looking trucks, but if you want something to perform and look cool, that's a lot harder thing to come up with. So, and I would not recommend RC 4-wheel drive for that combination. That's why I no longer own any of them. They're great fun. I owned a Marlin for a while and 4Runner body swapped it, but if you need it to actually perform, yeah, that's not what I'm going to recommend to you. What I would recommend is putting an RC 4-wheel drive body on a Vanquish, which I've done a few times. All right, now we got the entrance, which took a lot longer than I anticipated, but whatever. It's rock crawling today, not rock racing today. Because rock racing is a thing as well. It's an ugly pinch. Our rear's really sideways too. I don't necessarily want my rear that sideways. So let's get a front dig going. All right, it pushed through the bind. The rear is going to be a nightmare to get through that. Especially as our front's going to be like rim locked. This could be one that doesn't work. Believe me, guys, every component there does not like doing stuff like that. The servos, the motor, the transmission, the portal gears, the shocks, the links, nothing in there is enjoying this. But we made it through. Those trapdoors get such good traction on those sidewalls, like I mentioned, that pushing them through a full sidewall bind like that is very difficult. The components have to be top-notch to be able to handle stuff like that. And that's one of the reasons I built this car the way I did, is so I could go out and just abuse it like that and it take it. And we're still running and driving, everything's working. It's not happy, but it's doing it. And here we are exiting out the end of that crack, leaving us right back to where we dropped a minute ago. Damn bushes. This is a really weird looking line. This is definitely something unique out here. Gonna rock hop a bit, which is gonna turn into some V-notch climbs, spanning some gaps. Ooh, that tire barely crossed that. The forward weight bias on the car and the overdrive really helps it drag the rears through stuff like that easier. Nice, I almost had to use dig there, but it was able to pull through. Like I say, some V-notch stuff, some rock hopping. And then it gets into this natural formation, which is this notch. A lot of mouse poop in here. Definitely some rodents living in the rocks. That's how one of my favorite trails got its name, Mousetrap. Because the real rock crawling trail in the area is named after a board game, Chutes and Ladders. And then I thought it'd be cool to name an RC trail after a board game in there as well. With a bunch of mouse poop in the bottom, Mousetrap made the most sense. And it's really caught on. Like, people have driven full-size cars through there as well, and it remains being called Mousetrap. So, it's a pretty well-known spot at this point. I'm at 1100 knot, loving life. Just trying to get some overdrive to pull the front end so it's not so vertical. This car is like straight up and down right now. There we go. Ooh, and then we got this nasty looking exit too. No, we're out of battery. I did design this car to have an easy to change battery setup, so, oh, forgot to hit the power button. The servos work from the BEC, but you gotta activate the motor to get it working. I made this car super accessible to the battery tray so that I can do just quick battery swaps. There's a ton of scale buggies out there that are a real pain in the ass to swap a battery on, and I just wanted this car to be a driver, and so part of that was just making it serviceable, easy to work on. So that's why I don't have like a super big scale interior or anything that's like blocks me from making this truck work, or being able to work on it, I should say. Okay, we got this rock sticking up in our way. We got to get the belly up and over. There we go. That was a cool one. That definitely felt like a real buggy coming through just a big rock pile. Rad, that was a sick line. Super unique. Worth trying. All right, so on these D1 RC shocks, they have been tweaking the design of the O-ring setup, and they're trying to get the manufacturer of them to install them from the factory. At the time I got these, they were not installed from the factory, so I had to swap them to a red X-ring versus 2 silicone standard O-rings. And I swapped 2 of the seals, and I swapped the front seals to the X-ring. And out of laziness and just being tedious, I didn't swap the rears when I built them. So currently my rears are leaking pretty bad, and the fronts are pretty solid. There's a slight amount of oil at the bottom of the shock from the fronts. Like, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And then I think I used 40 or 60 weight on these, which I know is a big difference, but I don't know, I build too much stuff to remember every little detail. So as far as the X-rings being worth it or not, yes, they are worth it on these shocks. Dude, this thing just drives to the bottom. Okay, stay on the wall. That doesn't work at all. Okay, this isn't a line then. But there's your update on the shock O-ring situation. Hopefully in the future they get the manufacturer to make them with those X-rings, and you should see improved, less oil leaking. And they are serviceable. It's tedious, like I said, but it is possible to do it without any specialized tools. There's a little metal clip in there that snaps into a machined ring, and you can pop that out and it'll let the O-rings out of the cartridge of the shocks. You know, we really need to not drop in this giant hole over here. Crap, crap. It's getting ourselves in trouble at this point. Oh, grab tires, come on. Come on, Trepidor. That's it. This car really seems to make these Trepidors work. If you put them on light rigs, they really don't seem to work as well. So if you get up like 7-pound plus range, the Trepidor is really gonna start kicking some ass for you. That's been my experience. And cutting and modifying them, I've seen what's on the inside of these tires, and these are a fairly thick carcass tire. So it would make sense that a little heavier truck gets them to conform a little bit more. And I don't even know where we're going. We're just monster trucking right now. Sick, that's cool. Nice. It's like a 90-degree transition from one to the other. Well guys, I hope you've enjoyed the content out here crawling this buggy today. Truthfully, there's been a lot of clips where we fail at making it up lines and I sit there for 4 or 5 minutes at a time trying to make it. So there's probably a good chunk of this video that hit the cutting room floor and editing, which typically I don't do. So probably lost some commentary. Some stuff might not make sense how I jump around or mention things that I didn't talk about in the video, but in real person I did talk about. So my bad about that, but just want to keep the video a little more entertaining and engaging to keep things moving along. And that's not a line, so we're gonna back out of that one. I could fall off those rocks if I wanted, but it's gonna be about best case scenario. So thank you guys for watching. Be sure to hit the affiliate links down below. Follow links to the brands that made this car possible. Not every link is an affiliate link. Sometimes I'm just supporting the people who support me. Ooh, good one. Sick, that was pretty clean. But again, I really appreciate your guys' time. Thanks for the comments. I read through them all. I don't get to respond to every one of them, but they're largely positive, so I really like that you guys enjoy it. Thanks for the support and for watching. Check out westdesertwheeler.com. And we will see you guys in the next one. Keep the rubber side down.